My phone buzzed at 7:12 a.m. That hour sits in a strange place between night and morning, when your brain isn't awake enough to argue with fear, and bad news feels more believable simply because you're not ready to fight it yet. I was standing in my kitchen, barefoot on cold tile, staring at a coffee mug I hadn't touched. The apartment was quiet in the way only early mornings are, no traffic, no neighbors, just the soft electrical hum of the fridge. Then my phone vibrated again. Dad. I stared at the screen longer than normal. My father doesn't call early unless he wants something, or unless he's about to announce something like it's a verdict already decided. Growing up, early calls from him never meant good. They meant consequences. Decisions. Something already done without my consent. I answered. Hello? There was no hesitation on his end. No greeting. No warmth. Grandpa died last night, he said. His voice was flat. Not sad. Not rushed. Just rehearsed. Like he'd practiced the sentence until it sounded clean. I waited for the rest. The pause where someone breathes. Where grief sneaks in by accident. It didn't. Funerals Friday, he continued. He left us everything. My grip tightened around the phone. Then he added, casually, like an afterthought. You get nothing. For a second, my body forgot how to breathe. Not because I believed him. But because of the sound I heard next. Laughter. Not quiet. Not nervous. Not the kind people try to hide when they know it's inappropriate. It was bright. Sharp. Almost cheerful. My mother. I could hear her clearly in the background, close enough to the phone that she knew I'd hear it. Close enough that it felt intentional. Then her voice cut through, sweetened and deliberate. Finally, she said, laughing again. You're out. Something cold settled in my chest. I could have argued. I could have screamed. I could have demanded answers, dates, documents, proof. That's what they expected. Instead, my eyes drifted to the kitchen table. Because my grandfather was sitting right there. Alive. He sat across from me, both hands wrapped around his coffee mug like nothing in the world had shifted. The steam curled up lazily, catching the morning light from the window. His posture was relaxed. Grounded. The kind of calm you don't get from ignorance. It comes from certainty. His hands looked older than they used to, skin thinner, veins more visible, but they were steady. No tremor. No confusion. His eyes were sharp, awake, observant. On the table in front of him sat a sealed envelope. Thick paper. Attorney letterhead printed cleanly in the corner. My name handwritten across the front in his careful, unmistakable script. The seal wasn't decorative. It was the kind that snaps when you break it. Evidence, not sentiment. I didn't respond to my father. I didn't react to my mother's laugh. I simply pressed one button. Speaker. Then I slid the phone across the table until it rested between me and Grandpa, like a microphone placed deliberately at the center of a confession. My father kept talking. My silence always makes him assume he's winning. You thought you were smart, he said, voice sharpening. Playing independent. Acting like you didn't need us. Now it doesn't matter. He paused, just long enough to enjoy it. The house. The accounts. The land. Everything's ours. I watched Grandpa's face closely. No anger. No shock. Just the smallest tightening near his jaw. The kind of expression a judge makes when marking a lie. My mother leaned closer to the phone, her tone shifting into that fake kindness she uses when she wants cruelty to sound reasonable. Come to the funeral, she said. Or don't. Either way, you're not family anymore. Grandpa's eyes dropped, not to the phone, but to the envelope. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. He tapped the seal once with his fingertip. One quiet tap. Like he was reminding himself there was a line they hadn't read yet. My father's voice hardened. Are you even listening? I kept my voice steady. I'm listening. He exhaled, disappointed that I wasn't crying. Good, he said. Then do the right thing and stay away from the attorney's office. We've already handled it. Handled it. That word made my stomach drop. Because in my father's mouth, handled means paperwork, signatures, and someone being cornered when they're too emotional to read. That's when I noticed something else. Small. Important. Grandpa's left hand wasn't on his mug anymore. It rested on a thin manila folder beside the envelope. Not thick. Not dramatic. The kind people use when they want the paper to be the story, not the packaging. He'd come prepared. My father kept talking, confidence building as he heard nothing but my controlled breathing. We're driving to the cabin tomorrow, he said. Taking inventory. We'll send you whatever personal junk you left there. My mother laughed again. If there's anything worth sending. The call timer kept climbing. 7:13. 7:14. Proof this wasn't a nightmare. Then Grandpa did something that made my skin prickle. He leaned slightly toward the phone. Not fast. Not dramatic. The slow movement of a man deciding a door is about to close. He met my eyes for 1 second. A question without words. Are you ready? I nodded once. Grandpa lifted the sealed envelope, held it at eye level, angled toward me like he was reminding me it existed for a reason. Then he set it back down and placed 2 fingers on the manila folder. He still didn't open anything. He just listened. My father's voice took on that tone, the one he uses when he believes he's giving orders to someone who has no options. Don't cause problems, he said. You'll embarrass yourself. It's done. Grandpa didn't react outwardly. But his thumb slid the envelope a few inches closer to the phone, like positioning it for the moment it would matter. Then he leaned in and spoke. Not loudly. Not angrily. Just one word. Clear. Measured. Final. Hello. The laughter on the other end stopped so abruptly it felt like someone cut the audio. No breathing. No shuffling. Just silence. For 2 full seconds. Then my father's voice returned, thin and disbelieving. Dad? Grandpa didn't answer right away. He looked at the envelope. Then at me. Then back at the phone. Like he was deciding whether this conversation would be a warning. Or the beginning of something official. Because whatever my parents thought they had handled. My grandfather had handled something too. And he had brought proof to my kitchen table. For a few seconds after Grandpa said hello, the line stayed dead silent. So quiet I could hear the faint electrical buzz of the kitchen light. Then my father's voice came back, thin, uncertain, like the ground had shifted under him and he didn't know where to place his weight. Dad? My mother didn't speak at all. I could hear her breathing though, short, sharp inhales. The kind people take when they're deciding whether to panic or perform. Grandpa didn't give them the mercy of confusion. I heard everything, he said. Not louder. Not angrier. Just present. My father tried to recover control immediately. His words started tumbling out fast, overlapping themselves. Dad, this is a misunderstanding. We got a call. They said. No, Grandpa cut in. One word. Clean. You didn't say you got a call, he continued. You said you got everything. Silence again. My mother slid in next, voice suddenly soft, honeyed, trembling in the most practiced way. Oh, Dad, thank God, she said. We were so scared. We thought. You laughed, Grandpa said. One sentence. One fact. It landed heavier than any accusation. Her sweetness cracked mid-breath. That wasn't, she started. I'm sitting here, Grandpa continued, with your granddaughter at her kitchen table. I have a sealed envelope from my attorney. My father's tone shifted. Less theatrical. More urgent. Why are you with her? He demanded. She's been poisoning you against us. Grandpa glanced at me for a fraction of a second. Not for reassurance, just acknowledgement. Then he looked back at the phone like he was speaking to strangers. I'm with her, he said, because I knew you'd try something the moment you thought you could. My stomach tightened. He wasn't guessing. He was confirming. My father raised his voice, volume replacing logic. Are you even thinking clearly? Do you know what day it is? It's Tuesday, Grandpa said calmly. And at 7:12 this morning, you called my granddaughter and told her I was dead. That sentence changed the air. Because that wasn't opinion. That was record. My mother snapped back, sharper now. We said that because she causes problems. She shows up and makes scenes. She shows up with documents, Grandpa replied. That's what you're afraid of. Then he did something that made my pulse jump. He didn't argue morality. He asked a procedural question. Why did my bank receive a death notification request at 6:48 a.m., he asked. I sucked in a breath. I hadn't known that. My father made a sound, half cough, half choke. What, he said. What are you talking about? Grandpa slid the manila folder toward me and opened it for the first time. Inside was a single printed page. Bank logo at the top. Alert header bolded. He tapped it once and pushed it closer to the phone, as if my father could see it through the speaker. This, Grandpa said, is an automated fraud alert. It came to my email at 6:52 a.m. 4 minutes after someone attempted to initiate a deceased customer process under my name. My mother's voice went thin. That's not us. Grandpa didn't argue. He simply read. It lists the submitting contact as, he paused, eyes dropping to the line, then lifting again. My son's email. The kitchen felt smaller. Because this wasn't just a lie on a phone call anymore. This was a system touched. A process triggered. And systems don't care about family. They care about logs. My father snapped back, desperation sharpening his tone. That's fake. She's showing you fake paperwork. It came from the bank, Grandpa said. Not from her. Then he leaned closer to the phone. His voice didn't rise, but it cooled. Here's what's going to happen, he said. At 9 a.m., I have an appointment at my attorney's office. She will be there. This call will be played. My grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted their voices. Their laughter. Their certainty that I was out. Because people like my parents rewrite the past the moment the future stops obeying them. My father realized it too. His voice softened instantly. Dad, he said carefully, we can talk in person. Don't do this in front of strangers. You already did, Grandpa said. At the bank. Then he added, almost casually. And someone was at my cabin this morning. My hands went cold. What? I whispered. Lockbox tamper alert, Grandpa said. 10 minutes ago. I looked at my phone as if it might already be buzzing. My father inhaled sharply, barely audible, but real. Grandpa leaned in, voice precise. Tell your cousin to step away from the door. The line went silent for 1 second. Then, faintly, far in the background, I heard another voice on my father's end. Panicked. Fast. Hey, someone's here. Grandpa ended the call with one clean tap. Final. Then he slid the sealed envelope toward me like every word mattered now. We're going to the attorney, he said. And then we're going to the cabin. As I grabbed my keys, my phone buzzed. A notification I'd never seen before. Cabin camera, front porch motion detected. I opened it. The feed loaded in shaky bars of signal, then sharpened. A man with a tool bag knelt by the lockbox. Behind him stood my father's cousin, watching the road. Waiting. The porch camera feed loaded in broken bars of signal. For half a second, it was just static and blur. Then the image sharpened. A man knelt in front of my grandfather's lockbox, a dark tool bag slung over his shoulder. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't hiding. He worked with the calm confidence of someone who believed he had permission. Behind him, half in frame, half pretending not to be, stood my father's cousin. Watching the road. Waiting for something to go wrong. Or for us to arrive too late. My stomach turned cold. Grandpa leaned closer to my phone, eyes steady, unblinking. He didn't gasp. He didn't curse. He nodded once, slowly, like a man watching a trap finally catch what it was built for. Record it, he said. I hit screen record. A small red dot appeared. Proof. The man at the lockbox tried again, adjusting his tools, muttering something we couldn't hear. He leaned in closer, testing pressure. Then he stood and spoke to my cousin. Even without sound, his gestures were clear. It's locked. I need a code. My cousin pointed toward the cabin door like he was done waiting. That's when the locksmith, because that's exactly what he was, walked up the porch steps. Past the lockbox. Toward the door. My pulse spiked. Grandpa's jaw tightened for the first time since the call. Not fear. Offense. People like that, he said quietly, don't stop when paper fails. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a second phone. Old. Plain. No apps. No notifications. A number already saved. He pressed call. It rang once. Twice. Sheriff's office, a man answered. This is Harold. This is Harold Carter, Grandpa said, voice steady. I have a live camera feed showing an attempted unlawful entry at my cabin. There was a pause. I am alive, Grandpa added. My son is falsely reporting my death. That changed the tone immediately. Mr. Carter, the deputy said, where are you right now? On my way to my attorney, Grandpa replied, but I need a unit at my cabin. Now. He gave the address from memory without looking at anything. Then he added one line, almost casual, but it landed like a blade. And note this. A bank death notification attempt was made this morning under my son's email. The deputy didn't question it. Understood, he said. We're dispatching. Grandpa ended the call and looked at me. Keys, he said. Folder. Envelope. My hands shook as I grabbed everything. We were out the door in seconds. The truck engine rumbled to life, tires crunching gravel as Grandpa pulled out of the driveway. He still drove, despite my protests, hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed on the road. The sealed envelope sat between us like a loaded weapon. I kept the cabin feed open on my phone. The locksmith tried the door handle. Locked. He stepped back, said something to my cousin, then reached into his bag again. My cousin checked the road. Then, finally, red and blue lights flashed at the edge of the frame. 2 sheriff vehicles pulled into the driveway, lights cutting through the trees like knives. The locksmith froze. Hands up. My cousin did not. He backed away from the porch. Then he ran. Straight into the woods. One deputy took off after him. Another stayed with the locksmith, guiding him down onto the porch steps. Grandpa didn't react. He watched like a man confirming a diagnosis. My phone buzzed again. Not an alert. A call. Dad. I stared at the screen. Grandpa stared too. He didn't tell me to answer. He slid the phone toward himself. Let's see, he said quietly, what story he tries now. He put it on speaker and answered. Yes. For half a second, my father didn't speak. Like his brain couldn't process the sound of a dead man answering. Then he recovered fast. Dad, he said too smoothly. Thank God. I'm coming to see you. We need to talk privately. Right now. About what? Grandpa asked. There was a pause. Then my father chose his angle. About her, he said. My stomach tightened. She's manipulating you. Isolating you. People are worried. People. That word is never about concern in my family. It's about leverage. Grandpa glanced at me, then back at the phone. At 7:12 this morning, he said calmly, you told my granddaughter I was dead. Dad, I didn't. You did, Grandpa cut in. And your wife laughed. Silence. Then my father snapped. Fine, he said. You want the truth? We did it because we had to protect what's ours before she stole it. What is ours? Grandpa asked. The estate. The accounts. The cabin. The land, my father said fast. You don't understand how this works. If she gets involved, it becomes a mess. She is involved, Grandpa said. She's sitting beside me. My father's breath hitched. Then he tried to soften. Let's not do this through lawyers, he pleaded. We'll handle it as family. You already chose lawyers, Grandpa replied. You chose the bank at 6:48. You chose the registry. You chose the lockbox. What lockbox? My father asked too quickly. Grandpa waited just long enough for the lie to form. Then said, the one your cousin tried to open 10 minutes ago. Another silence. Then, faintly muffled, too close to the phone, a woman's voice whispered. Don't say anything. My mother. I can hear her, Grandpa said. You're on speaker. And you're being recorded. That changed everything. My father's tone shifted instantly. Dad, he said carefully, this doesn't have to get ugly. Grandpa gave him nothing. Tell me why you told my granddaughter to stay away from my attorney, he said. My father hesitated. Just long enough. She's unstable, he said. She twists things. Everyone knows. Grandpa's voice went cold. Everyone doesn't know, he said. You want it on paper so she sounds unreliable. Silence again. Then my father said the sentence that told me this wasn't just about money. The court is already involved. My blood ran cold. What court? Grandpa asked. I mean probate, my father backpedaled. It's standard. Grandpa didn't argue. Because the truth doesn't need volume. Good, he said. Then you'll have no problem explaining why deputies just arrested your cousin at my cabin. The line went dead. When we turned onto the mountain road, my phone buzzed again. The porch camera showed my father's cousin being walked back toward the driveway. In handcuffs. The attorney's office smelled like paper and quiet money. Neutral carpet. Glass walls. Framed certificates arranged carefully so no one piece looked more important than another. The kind of place where families pretend they're civilized, because the walls are beige and someone is watching. The attorney stood as Grandpa walked in. Not rushed. Not confused. Not fragile. Very much alive. Mr. Carter, she said, professional warmth sharpening into focus. I'm glad you came in person. Grandpa nodded and gestured toward me. She stays with me, he said. That wasn't a request. It was a line in the sand. He placed the sealed envelope on her desk like it weighed more than paper. Before anything else, Grandpa said, I want my son's call preserved. The attorney's eyes lifted. You have the recording? I held up my phone. Speaker. Everything. She nodded once. Good. That single word told me something important. She already knew this wasn't normal. Grandpa leaned forward slightly, calm as stone. Tell me, he said, what my son tried to file. The attorney exhaled and turned her screen so he could see. There was an inquiry this morning, she said carefully. From your son. He asked whether a death certificate had been issued yet, and whether he could proceed with immediate estate administration. My stomach dropped. He hadn't just talked about my grandfather being dead. He'd tried to make it procedural. He asked for a death certificate? I said. Yes, she replied. Grandpa didn't flinch. That tracks, he said quietly. The attorney clicked again. There was also a change request, she continued. To update beneficiary contact information on 2 accounts. Which ones? Grandpa asked. She hesitated, just long enough to matter. The investment account, she said. And the cabin property file. The truth settled into place like a lock clicking shut. This was never about leaving me nothing. It was about moving fast enough that I couldn't interfere. Grandpa opened the manila folder and slid the bank fraud alert across the desk. The attorney read it. Her expression changed. That's an automated fraud flag, she said. These only trigger when someone initiates a deceased customer process. Grandpa nodded. Exactly. Then he tapped the sealed envelope. Now we open this. The attorney nodded, but her eyes stayed on Grandpa, not me, not the paper. Like she knew the next 5 minutes would decide whether this stayed a family dispute or became a criminal file. Grandpa broke the seal slowly. No shaking hands. No hesitation. Inside were 2 documents. 1 letter. 1 stamped, notarized amendment. He scanned the first line, then slid the second document toward the attorney. I want this filed today, he said. She read it. Then she went still. This appoints an executive, she said slowly. Not your son. Grandpa nodded. And it explicitly denies him access, she added. Yes, Grandpa said. Because I know him. The attorney swallowed and placed the document into a tray labeled urgent. We can file this immediately, she said, professional again. But once we do, your son will be notified. Let him, Grandpa replied. Then he added, and I want a statement on record that I am alive. The attorney nodded sharply. We can do that. She printed the form. Grandpa signed, clean, deliberate, unmistakable handwriting. Then she turned her screen toward me. Your father also attempted to access your grandfather's estate portal, she said. He used an old password reset question. My chest tightened. How would he know that? I asked. Grandpa answered before she could. Because your mother filled out my forms, he said quietly. For years. The room felt colder. The attorney looked up. Mr. Carter, do you believe they may have physical documents with your signature? Yes, Grandpa said. And they tried to steal them this morning. My phone buzzed. Another cabin alert. I opened the feed. 2 sheriff vehicles sat in the driveway. The locksmith was seated on the porch steps. Hands visible. Compliant. My father's cousin was not. He stood near the tree line, arguing. Then he bolted. A deputy chased him. The locksmith stayed put. The attorney leaned closer to my phone. Is that Liv? Yes, I whispered. Then my phone buzzed again. Not an alert. A call. Dad. I stared at the screen. Grandpa stared too. He didn't hesitate. He slid the phone toward himself and answered on speaker. Yes. My father's voice came through too smooth, too fast. Dad. Thank God. I'm coming to see you. We need to talk privately. About what? Grandpa asked. There was a pause. Then my father said the line he thought would work. About her. The attorney's pen stopped moving. She's manipulating you, my father continued. She's isolating you. People are worried. Without looking away, the attorney tapped a button on her desk phone. A small red light turned on. Recording. At 7:12 this morning, Grandpa said calmly, "You told my granddaughter I was dead." I didn't. You did, Grandpa said. And your wife laughed. Silence. Then my father snapped. You're not thinking clearly, he hissed. You're being exploited. The court will protect you from her. The attorney's fingers flew across the keyboard. What court? Grandpa asked. My father hesitated. Then tried to soften it. I mean probate. Standard process. The attorney froze. Then she spoke, voice lower. Mr. Carter, she said, there is a filing. My skin went cold. My father exploded. Don't listen to her. That attorney works for her. She ignored him. Emergency petition, she read. Temporary guardianship. The word hit the room like a dropped plate. Guardianship. They claim mental incapacity, she continued. They allege exploitation. My father leaned into it now, confident. It's for your own good, he snapped. If you won't listen, the court will make you listen. The attorney scrolled further. They requested an expedited hearing, she said. When? I asked. She looked up. Today. Grandpa turned his head slowly and looked at me. Not fear. Apology. Because he hadn't just predicted they'd try to take his property. He'd predicted they'd try to take him. Then the attorney added the final line. They listed the cabin as your current residence, she said. That would give them authority to control access. My phone buzzed again. I opened the feed. A deputy was holding a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it. Read. Then lifted his radio. I zoomed in until the image broke into pixels. Still, I could read the top line. Temporary guardianship order, draft. Already printed. Already there. Waiting. Grandpa stared at the screen. Then leaned toward the phone still connected to my father. You brought the court to my front door, he said quietly. My father's reply came back calm. Satisfied. Not yet. Grandpa ended the call. One tap. Silence. The attorney closed her laptop and stood. Okay, she said. We move fast. By the time we reached the courthouse, the day had fully woken up. Traffic. Phones ringing. People arguing over parking. Normal life, moving fast around something that was about to explode quietly in a courtroom upstairs. The attorney walked ahead of us, heels sharp against tile, folders tucked under her arm like weapons she knew how to use. Grandpa walked beside her, steady, upright, not leaning on anyone. Not the picture my father had tried to paint. We passed a security checkpoint. Metal detector. Plastic bins. The guard glanced at Grandpa's ID. Then looked up. Then looked again. Morning, sir, he said, suddenly more respectful. Alive people do that to systems. They force them to update. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. No drama. No grand speeches carved into stone. Just rows of wooden benches, a raised desk for the judge, and a clock ticking too loudly for comfort. My father was already there. So was my mother. They sat close together, heads bent, whispering like conspirators who still believed they were ahead of the story. My father looked up first. For half a second, his face emptied. Not anger. Not shock. Calculation failing. My mother's eyes widened, then narrowed instantly, mask snapping back into place. The clerk called the case. Emergency petition for temporary guardianship. My father stood quickly, like he was eager. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Everyone sat. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked down at the file. This petition alleges mental incapacity, he said, voice neutral. And immediate risk of exploitation. He looked at my father. You're requesting expedited authority. Yes, Your Honor, my father said. My father is being manipulated. He's confused. Vulnerable. The judge nodded slowly, then turned his gaze. Mr. Carter, he said. Grandpa stood. No shaking. No hesitation. Yes, he replied. The judge paused. Then asked the simplest question in the room. Are you alive? Yes, Grandpa said. A ripple moved through the benches. The judge glanced down at the file again. Because this petition, he said, tapping the page, was filed under the assumption that you are deceased or incapacitated. Grandpa didn't argue. He gestured to the attorney. She stood. Your Honor, she said, before addressing capacity, we'd like to enter evidence of fraud, false reporting, and attempted unlawful entry. My father's head snapped up. That's irrelevant. The judge held up a hand. Proceed. The attorney connected her laptop. The screen behind her lit up. First slide. Bank fraud alert, 6:52 a.m. She spoke clearly. At 6:48 a.m., the petitioner initiated a deceased customer process with Mr. Carter's bank. 4 minutes later, the bank issued a fraud alert. She clicked. The email address appeared. My father's. He shifted in his seat. My mother reached for his arm. The judge leaned forward. You reported your father deceased, the judge asked. My father stammered. There must be a mistake. Second slide. Call recording, 7:12 a.m. The attorney pressed play. My father's voice filled the courtroom. Grandpa died last night. He left us everything. You get nothing. Then my mother's laugh. Clear. Bright. Unmistakable. A sound that does not belong in grief. The judge's jaw tightened. The recording continued. Stay away from the attorney's office. We've already handled it. The attorney paused the audio. Your Honor, she said, this was said while Mr. Carter was sitting alive at his granddaughter's kitchen table. The judge looked at my father. Then at my mother. Neither spoke. Third slide. Cabin security footage, time-stamped. The porch camera footage played. The locksmith at the lockbox. My cousin watching the road. The door. Then flashing lights. Then cuffs. A murmur spread through the room. The judge raised a hand again. Who is that? He asked. My client's nephew, the attorney said. The petitioner's cousin. Detained this morning during an attempted unlawful entry. My father stood abruptly. This is harassment, he snapped. They're trying to distract from her manipulation. The judge's voice cut through him. Sit down. My father froze. Saturday. Fourth slide. Draft guardianship order, printed. The attorney held up a document. This was recovered on site, she said. Before any hearing. Before any ruling. The judge took it. Read one line. Then another. His expression changed. You prepared an order, he said slowly, before this court acted? My father opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The judge set the paper down. Hard. Then looked at Grandpa. Mr. Carter, he said, have you signed anything granting guardianship? No, Grandpa replied. Are you under medical care for cognitive impairment? No. Do you understand these proceedings? Yes. The judge turned back to the file. Then to my father. This petition, he said, is based on false premises. My father shook his head desperately. She's influencing him. The judge raised his voice. No, he said. You attempted to declare a living man dead at a bank. When that failed, you attempted to declare him incompetent in court. Silence. The judge leaned back. Petition denied, he said. With prejudice. My chest loosened for the first time all day. But the judge wasn't done. He looked directly at my father. I am referring this matter, he said, for investigation into fraud, false reporting, and attempted abuse of the guardianship system. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father went pale. Grandpa didn't react. He didn't smile. He simply stood there, exactly where truth stands when lies run out of space. The judge turned to him one last time. Mr. Carter, he said, you're free to go. Grandpa nodded. As we walked out, my father called after us. This isn't over. Grandpa didn't turn around. He didn't need to. Because when lies collapse in public, they don't get rebuilt quietly. The courthouse doors shut behind us with a sound that felt heavier than they looked. Not loud. Not dramatic. Final. Outside, the air felt different, cooler, sharper. Like the world hadn't changed, but we had stepped back into it with fewer lies clinging to us. Grandpa paused at the top of the steps. He didn't rush. Didn't exhale in relief. Didn't look back. He just stood there, hands resting lightly on the railing, taking in the sunlight like a man reclaiming something that had briefly been questioned. Alive. Competent. His. The attorney joined us, phone already in her hand. That referral is serious, she said. Fraud involving financial institutions and abuse of the guardianship process doesn't disappear. Grandpa nodded once. I didn't expect it to, he said. I did something I hadn't allowed myself to do all day. I breathed. Behind us, the courthouse doors opened again. My parents stepped out. They didn't rush toward us. They didn't shout. They walked slowly, carefully, like people who know every word they say from here on out might end up written down somewhere official. My mother spoke first. Dad, she said softly. Please. Grandpa didn't turn. Don't, he replied. One word. No anger. No invitation. My father stepped forward anyway. You embarrassed us, he said, bitterness leaking through his restraint. In front of a judge. Grandpa turned then. Not sharply. Not aggressively. Just enough. You embarrassed yourselves, he said. Long before today. My father's jaw tightened. You think this is over, he asked. Grandpa's voice stayed even. No, he said. I think it's begun. The attorney shifted slightly closer to Grandpa, not protectively, just present. You're no longer authorized to contact my client regarding his finances or property, she said. Any further attempts will be documented. My mother laughed nervously. You can't just cut us off, she said. We're family. Grandpa looked at her for a long moment. Then spoke the quietest truth of all. Family doesn't try to erase you, he said. She stopped smiling. We walked toward the parking lot. Halfway there, a uniformed officer approached us. Mr. Carter, he said respectfully, will be following up regarding the bank report and the cabin incident. Grandpa nodded. I'll cooperate fully, he said. The officer hesitated, then added, Your son contacted our office earlier asking if we could confirm your death. I felt my stomach tighten again. Grandpa didn't react. I know, he said. That's why I called first. The officer gave a short nod. Someone usually does, he said. That's how we know who's lying. In the car, silence stretched between us. Not awkward. Settled. The sealed envelope was gone now, opened, filed, transformed into action. But the manila folder remained, thinner than before. Truth always is after it's used. I glanced at Grandpa as he drove. You knew, I said quietly. Didn't you? He kept his eyes on the road. I suspected, he said. People don't change when money appears. They reveal. I swallowed. What if I hadn't been there? I asked. He looked at me then. Longer than before. Then they would have gone further, he said. That's why I planned ahead. Ahead. That word echoed. Because he hadn't just prepared documents. He'd prepared for betrayal. When we reached my apartment, Grandpa turned off the engine but didn't get out right away. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out one last folded paper. Not legal. Not official. Handwritten. I meant to give you this later, he said. But today feels appropriate. I unfolded it. A short note. If anyone ever tries to speak for me, let this remind you. I chose you because you listen. My throat tightened. I don't want anything from this, I said quickly. I never did. Grandpa smiled, not wide, not sentimental. I know, he said. That's why you were never at risk of losing. That evening, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't my father. It was a notification. Bank account, temporary freeze initiated, fraud review. Then another. Property access updated, authorized users changed. Then one more. Court filing, guardianship petition dismissed. Each one felt less like revenge. And more like gravity reasserting itself. Lies float for a while. Truth sinks in. And when it does, it drags everything down with it. Later that night, Grandpa sat back at my kitchen table, the same one where he'd been declared dead that morning. Same chair. Same mug. But the room felt different now. Lighter. He looked at me and said something that stayed. They tried to take my voice, he said. So I made sure it was recorded. I nodded. Outside, the city hummed on, unaware that a quiet war had ended without shouting. My parents thought they could erase me with a phone call. Instead, they documented themselves. And once the truth becomes a file, it doesn't forget. That night, the city sounded normal. Cars. Distant sirens. Someone laughing 2 floors down. Normal life continuing, unaware that a war had ended without anyone raising their voice. Grandpa sat at my kitchen table again. Same chair. Same mug. Same place where, that morning, my parents had declared him dead. The difference now was simple. No one could pretend anymore. My phone buzzed once. Bank notice, fraud review confirmed. Then again. Property access, restricted, new executive authorized. Then one last time. Court update, case closed. Referral active. Grandpa didn't ask to see the screen. He already knew how this ends. People think winning looks loud, he said quietly. It doesn't. I leaned against the counter, exhaustion finally catching up to me. They really thought they could erase you, I said. He nodded. Erase you, he corrected. I looked up. They didn't care about the money, he continued. Not really. They cared about control. And control only works when people panic. I thought about the call. The laughter. The certainty. The way they told me to stay away from the attorney's office. They wanted me quiet, I said. Yes, Grandpa replied. so they could speak for both of us. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his old phone, the one with no apps, no noise. Never fight people like that with emotion, he said. Fight them with timestamps. I laughed softly. Despite everything. Near midnight, my phone rang again. Dad. I didn't answer. I didn't decline. I let it ring until it stopped trying. A message followed. We can still fix this. I didn't open it. Because some things don't get fixed. They get documented. The next morning, Grandpa packed to leave. Not to the cabin. Not yet. Back to his own place. On his terms. At the door, he paused and looked at me. They told you that you get nothing, he said. I nodded. He smiled, small, real. They were right about one thing, he said. You get nothing from them. Then he placed a hand on my shoulder. You get your life back. The truck pulled away. The street went quiet again. I stood there for a long moment, then went back inside and looked at the kitchen table. No envelope now. No folder. Just a clean surface where lies had sat and failed. My parents thought power lived in paperwork. They were wrong. It lives in staying calm long enough for the truth to become a file. And once it does, it doesn't forget. It doesn't soften. And it doesn't need revenge. It just waits.